Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 119. So again, giving you an insight of what we got up ahead for this week and also comparing our analysis from last week also. So we are going to start off with gold. So what we ended up looking at last week was pretty much this attempt for price to push lower. So we can see that we started to see, that kind of momentum kicking down lower. So now we're kind of heading into that 1800s region. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I probably will just stick on with this downside momentum. So mainly we're going to be looking at, well, I would be looking at mainly selling opportunities. So the way that this could run down, it could actually be really violent and it could go really fast, or it could go fast during the first few days of the week and then rapidly go higher. So it's pretty much one of the two, but we're ultimately ending up pushing lower. So that's kind of the general bias that I have with kind of the with gold, and you'll probably see some kind of similarities with that with the other pairs. So if I go ahead and show you your USD, we were looking at last week that price has this possibility to push up, and really what we found was that nice sharp move up, but then it quickly rebounded and recovered. So this is why there is a possibility that we could be looking out for some selling opportunities to the downside to take out 1.07, which is also something just to keep in mind with the with the general trend. But then there is this other option where we could be looking at some buying scenarios. So again, this is pretty much a 50-50 kind of scenario, but I think that just by looking out for some buying opportunities right now, just where we are with price, if we can hold above this support zone, there is a possibility that price can start to rally higher and pretty much see price push further and further. The other opportunity is that if we start to see further sell off, we could probably end up even into 107, and then there is an absolute possibility that price could go into 1.05, which is even a lot lower than I would have thought. So just by judging the whole kind of momentum of it all, I think we just can keep that into consideration. So I will keep this annotation there with that possibility that price could drop lower. So again, just keep that in mind, and again we can just kind of like go with the flow with it really. So taking a look into Nzd Usd, so pretty much what I ended up looking at for this week was a sell-off. I think we pretty much found a perfect scenario here. Don't think it could have been any more kind of different than we predicted. Literally a sharp sell-off straight away through the week. Pretty surprised by this. Again, a nice 200 point move, very above standard from a weekly perspective, but I think we can probably see more further downside moves in the long term. So let me just go get rid of the upside opportunities. So really what I'm trying to look out for is this idea that price can make a recovery, but also it can mainly still sell off at the same time. So if we can position ourselves in a correct way, we can really make a lot from this point moving forward. And I do believe we could, depending on what that momentum is through the week, it's very hard to say for now, but the way that price is falling, there is that opportunity that we could start to go into 0.65, or there is the other option where we get that momentum to take out the upside, which is all the way back into 0.71. So this is very like a wide macro view of it, but again we just need to stay a bit more fluid with it. So I don't think we can make any clear judgments in terms of the bigger picture for now. I think it's fair to say that we're still looking for some short opportunities. So let's just take a look and see what happens in a few weeks. So moving on to AU. So again, this is pretty much going to be a similar mirror effect with Nzd Usd. Predicted that sell off nicely. There was a nice drop. I think what we could expect now is probably further decay in this price. So again, it's going to be a similar case where we're either going to be pushing a lot lower, or we'll get like a recovery. So again, if price needs to recover, it's always going to have that pullback. So again, it can give us an opportunity for some buys, and then if we do find that perfect price point, we can look at some sells. And again, really, I'm not sure where price can go to, but if we just drag it out, we can look at 0.7, and then if that, if we get some kind of rejection from here and it starts to rally back up, we can look into 0.77. But again, macro perspective. So that's kind of like the overall view, I believe, with the X to the USD. So let's kind of flip it over to now the Japanese yens. So blending the US dollar with the Japanese yen, we've seen this instant push on price, always pushing. Again, here, what I was expecting was, well, we had the bank holiday at the start of this week, so wasn't really too keen on trading on that day. But if you did, there was a nice long opportunity to get involved with that. So as we spoke about last week, was with this divergence. So as we see, there is some slight tendencies that you have to be mindful of if you are looking at and using the RSI indicator as your as a indicator to take trades based on. So as you can see, if we was just looking at the RSI, you would have actually probably lost quite a few pips, going the opposite way. But with that being said, we can still use that divergence just as a potential indicator. Okay, so what I would be interested to see is if we can seek out any more divergence. So for me, this is still kind of leveling off. You could argue that that is a type of divergence, but again, we'll have to wait and see. So for me, I'm just going to possibly wait off for some sells, but we could, start to wait for the momentum in price action first, and then see, are we seeing those strong red candles? Because at some point we should start to see some recovery to the downside and some sell-offs, as we've seen from March, early March even. Just consistency in terms of price moving upwards and upwards. So as you know, if it always is in one direction, there is a high chance that price will eventually drop lower. So with that being said, as the alternate outlook on this, with the prospect that we think that price could go a lot higher, following on with the trend, there is that possibility that we could get a little pullback and then that continuation push higher. So again, pretty 50-50 with this, but we'll just have to see where we can go with the overall flow with it again. So taking a look at CJ, again, I believe this is going to be a similar story again. So I won't ramble on too much, but pretty much we will either get more continuations higher, or we'll get more or we'll start to see that huge sell-off that I've personally been waiting for. And that would be the key point where we can look for new trends to the downside, which I think would be, the next kind of key trend to partake in and hold. So again, it's going to look very similar to the US dollar Japanese yen pair. Take a look at that divergence. There is a little bit more, but again, divergence is still reduced, but it's still there. But again, it really depends what price action is doing at this moment in time. So if I go ahead and get rid of that channel, if we take a look at EJ, pretty much a similar story again. We're consistently pushing higher. I did think that 138 could have rejected and started to see price move lower, but that's very interesting. So now we can go on that basis where if we do break above 138, there is that possibility of, that continuation play. So we're just waiting for now price to potentially drop a little lower before we can expect price to go higher. And again, same prospect with the other Japanese yen pairs. We could experience a huge sell-off at some point. So my thinking is, once that happens with the other pairs, the Japanese yen, where it starts to sell off, we should start to see that reflect in the other pairs as well. Okay, so it's going to be not exactly timed together in that sense where they will all drop off, but there can be some clear signs to indicate that, yeah, price will drop off slowly, or a little bit more intensely. So Again, here we're going to be looking out for some possible pushes to the upside. So again here, or maybe some, no, not necessarily there, but maybe if we start to see a nice push up, retest and continuation. I'm also aware with this how AJ has just been pushing lower at the end of the week, which could be some alarm bells to ring for that sell-off. So I'm just going to be mindful of that. So this could be one or two things. So we could get a sell off at the top, so if price starts to make another rally to break into 96, or this will be the continuation to drop a lot lower. So again, we can fall into two kind of selling positions just to be mindful of. So pretty different with this pair compared to the Japanese yen pairs, but that's what I'm thinking so far with that collective with the Japanese yen. So going to move on to the last two, which is the USD Chef and USD Cad. So touching on with USD Swiss Franc, again with this we were looking at last week that the 95 barrier, if we were to reject from this, we should be able to drop lower, but we clearly blew through it, and now we're starting to push higher. So I think I'll be happy to just look at some scenarios in terms of relative bullish scenarios. So I have this idea that price could make a minor recovery lower before pushing on higher, or we could actually start to see that complete melt. I'm not entirely too sure how far we'll go, but I am aware that price has been consistently pushing gradually higher and higher, and especially from the period of, well, the start of April, it has been consistently pushing up. So I do believe that there is a possible recovery in store, so we may get a sell-off. So just being potentially aware of that. And finally, for the end is USD Cad. So what we looked at last, price potentially dropping lower into 125 and then having that sharp snap to the upside. Again, this was a very nice trade if you did manage to get involved with this. So if you didn't, what I'm going to be looking out for now is that possible push lower, so maybe like a little retest or a recovery, and then ideally we'll be looking for that possible push higher further. So again, that's what I'm going to be looking at for this week. It's not really been too much of a hectic week, but it has been a very impactful week. So I do hope you managed to grab some pips. If you did take a holiday off on Monday and you didn't trade, there is no problem in doing so. Obviously rest, take whatever you need to, and there's always another trading opportunity. So I will leave you with that, with everything that we've spoke about today. I do hope you find this video helpful for next week, and if you do, make sure you leave a like, make sure you're subscribed, and what we'll do is next week we can review everything again. So that'll be all from us. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all next week.